I didn't get it. You have to resend it.
So you deleted it?
You talking about the old one?
Yeah.
But the pizza thing? No, I didn't get a new one.
You didn't get my collection pass at all last week?
Yeah, that was the one about the pizza, right?
No. You told us we had to do like a half a page.
Oh, okay, yeah. You had a little picture at the bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not my notes, and it's coming out like this. Look at my phone because.
Yeah, you can look at your phone.
Okay, 'cause I know that's like.
No, that's fine.
I'm professional, but it is.
All right, so
I'm just like, I don't.
all right, so whatever. Look, I have my shirt tucked in.
Oh, there we go. Yay!
The sun clap.
It's like the first thing you do when you come in. You just take your shoes off.
Yeah, I don't like wearing shoes, man. I just don't like it. So what do you think? Whole semester, I've kept this pretty knocked down pretty low, but I've let it grow the past probably week. Yeah, there's a lot of gray in it. What do you think? Should I knock it back down or keep it this length?
I kind of like the whole.
All right, one vote, I'll do it.
I'm not gonna push my.
Yeah, you cannot impose your moral beard morality on the rest of the other non-bearded morality people. All right, so who's going first?
I can get it over with.
You want to go first, Piper, or do you want Lacey to go?
Y'all said rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, we did that the other day. What did we do that for?
I knew it's in
I was just gonna spend 10 minutes laughing at the conversation.
Oh, you're gonna be like those videos that they like. Take one.
All right, so y'all decide.
Rock, paper, scissors. Don't wrestle.
Rock, paper, scissors. Get it up.
I'm picking a number. Who's closer?
5.
Oh, number 5.
Okay.
One.
Oh, there you go, Maddie.
Why not
Decided
go
to
back to
leave.
like 2?
I swear.
It was probably like 1,184. And you're like,
Now you're close. I don't wanna talk
pick a
about
number.
exponential progression.
All right, everybody be quiet. Here we go. Lacey's going. All right, what's your topic? Wait a minute, let's see the time. All right, you see your time right here? About that. So you've got about 3 or so. All right. I'm drawing your little rubric out. All right, so what's your topic? Everybody be quiet.
The right to reproduce.
The right to reproduce,
Yes.
because that's contested at the moment.
Yes, it is.
All right.
The right to reproduce.
Oh, no, it probably is. There's a couple people I know that probably shouldn't.
All right, so you're arguing to him then. All right, go ahead.
Highly contested issue, especially now. And the United States has like a really dark past of like forced sterilization. But like the reasons they would do it would be like, we only want white people, or it would be like something like a teenage mother having a kid or someone who is considered promiscuous. But I'm going to argue for it if it's guarded very carefully, because the foster care system is overloaded. And I think that if you cannot take care of a child, you shouldn't be able to have one. Article 12 of the Universal Declaration of Human
Oh, so you're
Rights.
arguing for regulated childbirth.
Yes.
All right, Chinese lady.
Yeah. Article 12 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights says that no one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with his privacy, family, home, or correspondence, nor to attacks upon his honor and reputation. Everyone has the right to the protection of law against such interference or attack. So basically, worldwide is considered like, no, this is not ethical. It's in the Constitution. It's pretty much never, I don't think it's ever going to happen again, but I think it should. It's considered a basic human right, and I agree. I said, but shouldn't those who have used their rights lose them? What separates sterilization from other rights is the factor that reproduction multiplies its effects, leading to increased strain on the foster care adopted situation and broken adults. Okay, number 1, men and women, if you have had your children taken away in this time period, you have made no demonstrable effort to get them back, I think you should be sterilized. I have one family member who has had 5 children, and everyone she has is taken away, and she has made like no effort whatsoever to get them back. They all were born addicted. Like, they have multiple issues. They ask about their mom all the time. Like, it's just a huge mess. Like, I don't think someone who is physically incapable of raising children, and this applies to men and women, if you cannot take care of your own kids, I don't think you should be having more children. To men and women with severe mental disabilities, Down syndrome, psychotic illnesses. It's called psychotic not like as a derogatory term, but it means this person cannot like live alone. They're dependent in some way. Like someone who has severe schizophrenia, like they going to be able to take care of a child. And it's not like a eugenics thing. It's that if this person has a kid, they will not be able to raise it. I know one child, her mom has Downs and schizophrenia, and her dad has schizophrenia. They had her, and she was immediately given to the grandmother. But after the grandmother is no longer able to take care of her, she's going to go to the state. And she knows her parents, but they are completely, I've met both of them, they're completely incapable of raising her. 3, men and women with a history of sexual crimes, rape, incest, or crimes against children. This is kind of like a situation. If you have like a really weird, if you've done weird stuff in the past, you shouldn't have kids. If you rape, you shouldn't have kids. If you mess with a kid, you shouldn't have kids. Forced sterilization has a dark history in the States. The sterilization of minority races, different sexual orientations, and minor disabilities, one that would only mildly impact child rearing. It should never, ever be used for those purposes. One should have the right to reproduce until explicitly determined incapable of raising children.
All right, so highlight some of your points.
Basically, if you can't raise a child, you shouldn't be able to have a child.
All right, and so give some examples of that. So basically what you're doing is you're summarizing your position right here.
Yeah. If you have a severe disability, like if you are determined not able to raise children, I don't think you should be able to have children. Like if any child you have is immediately going to be taken away, you know? Like we already have too many children in the foster care system. We have too many.
But some of your examples, they weren't immediately taken away, right? So you might want to go through your examples, like give some of your examples that you had in there.
No, they both were pretty much immediately taken away. I gave 2 examples. One was my cousin who has had 5 children, and she's been addicted to drugs. It's like kind of the situation where she'll ask for help, but you cannot shelter her because if you do, you have people knocking on your door, like that kind of situation. And she'll have a child and it will be taken away, and it's happened 5 times. The other situation is a mom with Down syndrome and schizophrenia, and a dad with schizophrenia, and they had a kid, and the child immediately went into care. And the grandmother has even said, oh, they should not have kids, but right now it's kind of like it's considered such a basic human right that even if you have severe issues, you still can have children, possibly passing down those issues to them. And even if you can't raise the kid, you're still allowed to have children. So I do know people who their children were taken away and they worked and they got them back. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying if you have your child taken away and you've made no effort whatsoever to get them back.
All right, any objections?
I was trying not to sound like a Nazi because like it's very dark. It's like this is something that will never ever happen in the United States because I know that if I'm worried that if it started, people would start using it for the wrong reason, like socioeconomic status or something like that. When I'm talking about the individual.
So why might they not? Why wouldn't they do that? Because that's exactly where the argument's going to go. So if you're going to argue for that, what is your non-arbitrary stopping point?
Just, if someone can raise their child, but I mean, if someone, just because someone's poor or someone, you know what I mean? Someone comes from a different part. This is-
Right. So that's your big problem. Who determines who is fit to raise children? Who determines that?
I don't know.
Well, that's a big deal, right? Because, like, for instance, one thing you said was, won't they genetically pass down those possible, how did you word it? Diseases or?
Like traits or whatever.
Right. Well, who determines what is not desirable to pass on to next generation? So, for instance, what's your particular thing you struggle with?
Diabetes.
Right. So what if someone says, all right, look, man, like we can't let people have any of these traits that say, such as diabetes, have children because they're possibly just going to pass that down, which will perpetuate that genetic makeup. And if we let that to continue to perpetuate the genetic makeup of society, well, then we'll never be rid of something as easily curable as diabetes. But if we just don't let people with diabetes have children, well, then we never have to worry about diabetes ever again.
I get that, but I could have a child and I would not jack it up. Like, I could have a
Right.
child and I know enough
But
about
what if-
raising.
but what if-
Someone with schizophrenia, they're going to have.
But what if they say, though, well, sure, you may, but you're still giving them that genetic disorder. Don't you think that's not right?
No, because pretty much no one would be able to have kids if it was just.
Oh,
a
that's
genetic-
that's the problem,
If
because
it's just a genetic issue, I'm a little more concerned with how
So
the
we-
individual parent can raise the child or not.
so one of your objections was that we would pass down these potential things. So we need to strike that off immediately, right? Because then, like, you know, people that die of cancer at 27, well, no, their parents died of cancer at 27. We're not going to allow them to have children because they have a higher rate to pass on this genetic amount. So you're saying we need to immediately go ahead and strike that off the example list, right? Does that make sense? Why would you strike that off the example
No,
list?
it makes sense. Like it.
No, I'm asking these guys, like, why would you?
You're passing on that.
Because all of you are passing something on, right? And then so who determines what is or isn't desirable to be passed on, right? Right. So what if someone comes along one day and says, you know, cultural hot button topic. What if someone says, all right, we've found that there actually is a quote unquote gay gene, a homosexuality gene. Well, so now if we just eliminate those types of people from being able to reproduce, then we eliminate that genetic quote unquote discrepancy.
I immediately thought gabies. I don't know what my brain.
So you see what I'm saying? Like you have to immediately, all right, well, now who decides, right? Because this is, I mean, you said like you don't want to sound like a Nazi, but when we start talking about genetics, that's exactly their argument. That was exactly, they're like, we need to genetically get rid of these people, right? All right, so let's go to the other. Any objections in regard to the other stuff? Your deadbeat dad or whatever?
Hey, don't talk about that.
There's a girl on Facebook that's on Facebook.
So what you're saying, if I'm unfit to take care of my child, not be able to have a child? So like, let's say.
I think if you have a kid and you do nothing
basically you-
to raise it, I don't think you should be able to have more kids because that child is damaged because father's not available.
Okay,
I don't
because I was
think-
thinking like,
Oh.
if I have a job and then let's say like I get unemployed and we have, like, we just lose all of our money and have to like go live out of a box, I can't take care of my child at that point, so that means my child should be taken away.
Well, you're making an effort. There are people who make no
She's talking
effort
about the
or
turtles that
they're,
have more little turtles.
Oh,
and then they,
okay,
So
yeah,
it's just a bunch of little turtles.
I get you.
Okay.
if you're trying to raise your child, and there are children who, like, I met a family, they had 3 children, and the 8-year-old killed herself. I have no idea why. Like, they were a perfectly lovely family. So the younger 2 kids were taken away, but like within a year they got them back because they were just like, we promise it wasn't us. Like, we don't know. It could have been something going on at school. I have no idea what exactly was going on, but I know that.
So what if another child, so what if one of the other children would have done it during that time period?
Yeah, they probably wouldn't
They
have.
probably wouldn't got their kids back, right?
Yeah.
But what if they really didn't have anything to do with it? What if it was some sort of, again, genetic discrepancy? So I mean, who draws the line between, and then those people lose their kids because the state determines you're not good, you're not fit to be a parent. You see, I mean, that's just super difficult, because yesterday we talked about slippery slopes. It seems that may be valid to say that that's a slippery slope because you've really got to work hard to establish some sort of logical connection between who is fit and who is not fit as a parent. Otherwise, it really will become
It will go
radically
too far.
arbitrary.
Yeah.
Because again, who determines, what it means to be fit and not fit? So for instance, you have a kid, let's say, that grows up in a trailer or whatever. Well, what if the state comes to believe that if you're a parent that has children that live in a trailer, and they don't have access to whatever, fill in the blank, then let's say most of the people in your society don't, well then guess who looks not fit compared to the rest of society? Well, it's those
Yeah.
people,
Yeah, it would be associated.
and so what were you going to say?
I like. Okay. I have a friend that adopted a little girl from foster care, but the little girl's mom, had 5 kids and kept having kids and just giving them to the foster place. Would that be considered something like that? She just keeps having kids. Yeah, she just keeps getting pregnant and giving them away like it's candy.
Happy Halloween.
Yeah.
Like people kind of cute, a baby.
Yeah. So is that what you're talking about?
Are you relating it to genetics, basically?
Well, at first she had a genetic argument tied into it, but then let that go. Right?
Yeah, I think if you can't raise kids for whatever
Yeah,
reason, you
you're
shouldn't.
not putting in enough effort. So,
Yeah,
the lady
or
who had
if you
foster-
have Down syndrome,
Okay, I gotta argue about
you can't raise your kids.
There's different
I think it depends on
levels of
how-
Down syndrome.
Yeah, how bad it
There's
is.
people who have Down syndrome that can drive, they have jobs, they live on their own. Why wouldn't they be able to have kids? Even though if they wouldn't pass that down, maybe their kids have the same type they have, that's not as severe. And they're fully capable of doing everything else.
That's a good argument. I'm thinking of the people who are severely dependent.
But again, then that's when you get back into, well, what if they say, well, this is severe? Simply just because you do have Down syndrome.
And Down syndrome is not 100% genetic. My cousin had Down syndrome.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're missing a chromosome, I mean, that's,
Family didn't. So it's to say that if somebody has Down syndrome, has a child, we're not saying that their child is just gonna automatically have Down syndrome.
No, but if you have severe enough of anything, you can't, if you are dependent else, you know what I mean? I'm saying, how can you raise a child? If you're
watch the
severely
movie I
dependent.
Am Sam with Sean Connery.
Okay, argument over falling down.
It's all falling.
Saw falling down.
Well, no, that's an okay.
No, I-
falling down.
Somebody with a serious mental disorder trying to take care of his daughter. He had major Down syndrome in that movie. But he was still, or he had autism or something.
Yeah, what's that movie?
I Am Sam.
Yeah, that's a-
Sean Penn,
yeah.
Penn.
Yeah, that's a really good movie.
Because he had a major.
Right, he loved his,
had Down syndrome.
right, he loved his daughter or
He
whatever.
loved his daughter, but he still had a house. He was paid for stuff. He had a job.
Yeah, you need to watch that movie. I forgot about that movie. Yeah, that's
They were
a,
trying to take her away from saying you're not fit to do this. And at the end of the movie, he showed them that he was able.
oh yeah, that's an older movie, isn't it?
I've never seen
Maybe
it.
10 or 15 years old.
I probably should.
Let's watch it Tuesday.
Let's watch it.
Yeah, sure. Do a book report over I Am Sam.
Okay. I got a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, so what about if you're like teenager, whatever, experience and you get knocked up? And you can't raise your kid, what do you do? Well, whatever you want to do.
They're normally,
People are just talking about babies now.
they're normally fine. I mean, I've met plenty of teen mothers.
But what about if
that
they aren't? Though? What are they supposed to do? So they can't, they should never use more? Is that what you're saying?
No, I wouldn't say they're, because like they're not even fully grown yet. Like their brains haven't fully developed.
Well, your brain's not fully developed. No, I mean that seriously.
He's right. He's right though. It's scientific.
But like, I don't know. I got too many.
That wasn't really one of the arguments though.
But you're just saying
I think what she's trying to establish
if
is
somebody's not fit to raise children, like kids.
Raising children.
Children, I
Raise the children.
Raise a
know.
child.
Kids.
bad grammar, no kid for you.
15, sorry.
I'm done.
After 30, sorry.
I think what Hannah's just trying to say is, again,
But I know.
like you're running into the problem of who determines what is or isn't fit, is what she's saying. Does anybody else want to say anything before we let Lacey be done? Anybody else want to say anything before we let Lacey be finished? Very interesting. It inspired some discussions.
Good job.
And it was gonna be knocked down, but it's part of the reason I picked it, because last time I talked, nobody said it.
Yeah, I'm going to say the most ludicrous thing I can possibly think. I mean, think about that though, honestly, for a second. I mean, like in China, you know, is the policy still in effect? It maybe it just went out or whatever, but you couldn't have a female, you know?
Well, nobody wanted a female. so
Well,
they
right.
could have one kid and then-
Right, you could only have, right, we're right, yeah, I should rephrase that, that's not right. You could only have one child policy, then females weren't necessarily as desirable, so they just put them in a bucket or whatever. Well, they would put them in the, they would put them in a water, bucket of water and just drown them at birth.
Them Chinese are weird. They make good food.
Well, see,
And then like you go.
see, I would say it's not the Chinese.
Like this cat? No.
It's not the Chinese, it's, hey guys, listen up. What is it? It's not the Chinese, it's what? It's an ideology, right? It's an idea, right? It's an idea that's been put into practice. Remember, like we've said, ideas have consequences. So it's not the China, that could be just as done, if some people had their way here in this country, that could just as easily be the policy. That you have a one child, that families have one child, a one child policy. For instance, what Lacey just argued could lead to that kind of policy, one child per family. Because if we have this many people and this many resources, then no matter who you are, you would be unfit to raise anything more than one child. So, one child policy now. So see, it's not necessarily the quote unquote Chinese, it's an idea that has been adopted and put into practice. Again,
I think it's better than just singling out some people. Like, you might as well, like, instead of picking and choosing who you want to only have, like, no kids or one kid, like, I think it's easier to make everybody have one kid. Does that make sense? Well, I'm not saying it's better.
right, it may be more quote unquote practical or efficient. But here's the problem too, like what if, I mean, you know, let's go into conspiracy theory for a moment. Like what kind of population is easier to control? A smaller population.
North Korea.
A smaller population is easier to control than a larger population, right? At least in some sense. So what if it was for nothing but that in regards to, all right, we want to protect our regime, so one child. And then you mask it behind quote unquote environmental concerns. Because honestly, right now, that entire section of the world doesn't look like they're really that concerned about environment, right? All right, so anyway, moving past that. All right, you ready, Piper?
You're not ready. We all know.
He
You
was
were ready
ready when
like
you
3
walked
months ago.
I wish.
You were ready.
You guys really don't understand how much I just wing it and just hope it goes to plan. Like, I'm pulling the Wikipedia for cultural relativism to give you a basis for it.
Oh gosh, you fail.
It's actually pretty spot on. It just has nothing to do with my opinions on cultural relativism.
Well, just don't quote your
Well, you want me to quote it? And I quote Wikipedia.
fail. Fail blog.
God, how old is that? What are you trying to harken back to when I was like
It's about a
freshman?
little younger than you are, I believe.
Fail blog. I haven't heard that. I haven't heard the name of that site since I was a freshman.
I don't even know, I don't remember.
Which was what, like 5 years ago?
I'm 23.
I know. So go ahead.
Closer to 8 years ago. All right. Does anybody remember what cultural relativism is?
All right. Topic, cultural relativism. What time is it?
8:30.
All right.
Trying to be cool.
Too late.
Does anybody remember what it is?
Saying like, oh, this is right for this culture, but in this culture it's bad. Like, for example, if you are gay and you want to, you know what I mean, you want to date other guys, here it's fine. In Saudi Arabia, like it's
They'll
bad.
throw you off the
You
building.
get robbed.
What?
They'll throw you off the building. There you go. That's close. Cultural relativism is part of that. It's the idea that rules that people follow, what's ethical and moral, is determined entirely by your region, your culture, where you grew up, that kind of stuff. And so it's saying that all of them are equally valid because they all come from different backgrounds, that not any single one viewpoint is better than others. And so the whole point with cultural relativism is it's trying to basically make this overarching absolute argument that you can't ever say that your culture is better, that another culture is better, that somebody gets something else right more than you. Culturally speaking, despite the fact that it may be more productive, despite the fact that the society may be doing better, the fact that they may be economically more sufficient, despite all these things and more, it doesn't really matter to cultural relativism. They're all equally valid.
Okay, so like for example, China.
Like we were discussing.
They're one of the most like economically sound countries like in the world.
Right now.
Yet they were like killing babies and stuff to only have every family only had one child. And so they're saying that we can't really say shit about that because that's just how their culture operates.
Well, that's
Easy, bro.
exactly, and then that's the problem with cultural relativism is saying, regardless of the merits or regardless of how you view things, because that's how they view it, that's how their culture sees it, that's okay. Oh, we got to kill the female baby. That because that's the viewpoint.
Easy now.
You're not allowed.
Now you're just being racist.
They're pretty much saying you're not allowed to have any sort of criticisms on somebody else's culture, regardless of whether or not what they may do is morally reprehensible like that. And so it's kind of why cultural relativism, in my opinion, is absolute BS. It's kind of like a shutdown to having an argument. It's a lack of having a conversation.
It's a
Instead
lack
of-
an argument.
Yeah, it's instead of sitting down and weighing the values and the merits of certain viewpoints and cultures, it's instead taking that and throwing it out water, essentially. It's trying to say that you can't speak out against something that you may see as an injustice, such as women's rights in the Middle East, because that's their culture, and you should leave it as it is, because it's not your business. Well, it might not be my business, but I still don't want to see somebody stoned in a courtyard on an accusation that was made against them because their opinion is worth half of a man. That's not exactly something I want to see. So it's not. I think it's not a very tenable kind of viewpoint on the world. I think it's.
But you've got to give us some reason why you think that.
Well,
So what are some reasons why you think that?
Well, the primary reason is because I think it is, in fact, immoral not to be able to question other people's morals. I think it's anti-intellectual not to sit there and to discuss a topic. I think all topics should be on the board for discussion at a given point. Whether or not they have merits or not is entirely different from the fact that a topic should be able to be discussed. We should be able to say, does this have some value to it? Does it have some weight to it? Is there a reason why you should be able to do X, Y, or Z, or you shouldn't be able to do X, Y, or Z?
Sure, but that's just what you think. That's an assertion. So what's your argument that that's right, that viewpoint is actually right?
for it is that it's what works. I mean, cultures that are actually viable and sustainable usually allow you to talk about those kinds of things. Free speech and democracy are some of the things that, while they are terrible systems like we did with Winston Churchill, in the sense that, spend some time with your average democracy, it doesn't change the fact that they're what overall still get the job done. They lead to a stronger economy for the most part.
So your argument is pragmatism.
Mostly.
English, please.
So how does pragmatism entail the falsity of cultural moral relativism?
Because you're not going to improve your culture. If you don't take the time to analyze your culture and try and find reasons why you should or shouldn't.
But doesn't that assume that you ought to improve your culture?
Yeah.
But if you assume that you ought to improve your culture, that's just assuming that cultural relativism, moral relativism, is false. But we still have to have an argument that moral relativism is false.
That's the whole point, is that cultural relativism
Don't say it's false.
It's not that. I'm not saying it's false. I'm saying that it's impractical. It doesn't try to self-improve. It stagnates itself.
But impractical doesn't imply falsity.
It's not.
It just implies impracticality.
It's not about whether or not it's false or not. It's. I mean, you can.
But should it or should it not be practical?
What do you mean?
Like, is there any sort of moral obligation for a culture to be practical?
Well, that's the thing. It depends. I mean, you can say that you don't have to be practical, but
Well, then why bother?
you're not really going to survive as a species if you're not going to act practically.
So why so? But there's no moral obligation to survive as a species,
So
right?
you're saying burn everything down.
If cultural relativism is true, and there's no argument against it right now except that you say it's impractical, then why shouldn't I burn everything down?
Well, go ahead. See how that works out for you.
Well, you don't want to resort to that because you want to show that it's false, right? Not just that it's not just that it's impractical, but that it's false. That.
Well, it's based on the fact that cultural relativism doesn't really give an answer for anything. It seeks to sit there and say from an ivory tower that nobody should be ever criticized. And that's the whole point of the argument. It's not whether or not it's false, it's the fact that you should be able to criticize things.
But that's just your cultural view.
It's kind of because it gets the job done. That was the whole point. It wasn't necessarily an argument against cultural relativism in the sense that it is true or false. It's an argument as whether or not it's practical or not, whether or not it gets the job done.
Well, cultural relativism seems to be the stronghold of most people within this country, right? And this country seems to get the job done.
I wouldn't say that would be the majority in this country at the moment. That's a bit of a stretch.
You think so?
I would say so. You could.
That's what most polls say college students believe.
Just because it's college students, it's not the majority of people.
No, right, sure. But who usually ends up being the leaders of society are your college-educated folks, right? Whether we like that or not, that's just the truth. So if most people that attend college and go to college and then hold positions of leadership within this country, and then this country continues to quote unquote get the job done, and and they believe cultural relativism is true.
I don't think $3.6 trillion in debt gets the job done, but
How do you know what job needs to be done?
I mean, I know that kind of sounds funny, but that's a legitimate question.
I know it is.
Jeez. Feisty. All right.
well, once again, it's not just about being existent. That's not just the only job that you have to do. I mean, just take for example your life. Is that all you ever do? Is just be existent? Pretty much. It's ever. So how do you survive? Money comes from somewhere. It doesn't fall out of the sky on you. There we go. That pretty much ends that conversation pretty quick.
Any other objections?
I mean, how would you go about it?
Well, I'm not the one standing there.
Well, I would like to have the conversation.
Well, I'll offer up some stuff after these guys. Anybody else have any objections? Any objections? None.
There could be be a
I
lot,
don't even know how to respond.
and there should be a lot.
I agree. So,
Well, yeah, but Aristotle said the mark of an educated man is to take the opposite position without necessarily believing it. So
I tried to, but I got shut down.
what about you, Madison? What are you doing back there? What is that? Folding. I've never gotten that before
Don't
as
ask.
an answer in class.
What if you're doing all our dumb?
What are you doing? I'm folding.
Once again, don't ask.
oh, okay, never mind.
All right. So if you wanted to help Piper, what might you say?
So there are absolute truths. Like the thing about relativism is that they say like, oh, there are no absolute truths. Because over here, this is okay, but over here, it's not okay. So like,
Well, you might want to tighten that down because Piper's specifically talking about, even though I think it was kind of sloppy at the beginning, he's specifically talking about moral, right? Are you? Is that what you're talking about? Cultural moral relativism. So you might want to tighten that down to what you're saying to moral truths, not
argument
just.
against it and show that basically there are
Absolutes,
absolute
yeah.
Absolute what kind of truths though?
moral
Moral
truths.
truths.
Like what?
It's wrong to kill an innocent person.
Well, don't you just think that that's wrong? Again, isn't that just your cultural view?
What if that-
Like you were raised that way. That's why you think
You
that.
see,
Pretty much everybody thinks that shit. Like, I agree that, like, even like the jihad guys, they were like, thought we were evil, so they technically weren't.
what was the qualifier? That's the question. What was the qualifier?
As long as you deem them innocent.
There we go. That's the qualifier.
So what you're saying is that argue that no culture thinks it's fine to run around killing innocent people, right? That's what you're saying. They just disagree as to who is and isn't. Is that what you're saying? Which would get you to what kind of conclusion?
That there's an absolute rule that killing innocent people is pretty much frowned upon.
Or at least that there's some sort of red flag that maybe not everybody disagrees that some moral truths are completely relative.
Yeah.
All right, what about this? What about you try to cut it straight at the knees? Because I think that's where you really ought to, if possible, that's where you ought to try to go with any kind of argument, right?
What are you all laughing at?
Don't worry about it.
You're crazy.
All right, so let's just say that if we look at cultures, and let's just say for sake of argument that they all disagree. Piper, they all disagree in regards to morality. What would you say to that?
Just because they all disagree doesn't mean that one of them's not right.
What do you mean?
They could all disagree on whether or not killing babies is okay, but it doesn't change the fact that one of them may have it right, or maybe none of them may have it right.
Right, but doesn't the fact that they don't disagree, doesn't it follow that there's just not a right answer to that?
No,
Why does it not follow?
because simply because you don't know the answer to a question does not mean the answer doesn't exist.
For example,
For example, just because you don't know that the answer to 2 + 2 is 4 doesn't mean that the answer to 2 + 2 is not 4.
all right, so,
I'm sorry. I'm just-
It's just like that, the whole 9/11 thing.
That's why you have to leave it kind of open-ended, otherwise people won't ask questions.
all right, so what about the fact that, don't you think it's wrong to impose your view on others?
If it's the right view, not really, no. I don't think it's wrong to impose your view on others.
It's wrong to impose your view on others.
Yeah, you're just asserting that.
Now try a different thing. What am I doing? Like, it's wrong for you to impose your view on others. Morals are relative. Moral truths are relative. So therefore, it's wrong for you to impose your view on others.
That's the thing is I don't believe in that, so it just my mind just kind of shuts that bullshit out.
I don't care, I'm a smart man.
Right, but
No, that's not it. That's not it. For me, it just shuts that out. For me, it doesn't make any sense. Because for me, and this is just why it doesn't work for me on that argument. And this is why I don't even bother going through any steps, because for me, it's just stupid.
But you have to, because
I know you do, but it's not that. And so I'm saying it's the reason why for me it doesn't click on that one is because
Because there are some very, very, very intelligent people that would say, that idea is stupid. That doesn't even register me. I don't even have to answer that. That's stupid. You see what I'm saying? That's what,
Yeah, I
right
know.
now, that's what one particular ideology
Does right now.
does right
I
now.
know, and it's just I shut it out because for me it's funny to say, you know, I'm not going to impose my viewpoint because you're imposing a viewpoint.
There we go. That's what I'm getting at. So if I say
That's why-
moral truths are relative, it's wrong for you to impose your view on other people.
But that's my point. That's why
What are you doing?
you're imposing a viewpoint.
You're imposing your viewpoint on someone else right now.
But that's why I automatically shut it out. Because it's
So
stupid.
what is that then? What are they doing there?
Contradicting themselves.
Not basically, what are they doing?
Well, they are. They're violating.
They're violating law of non-contradiction, right? So if you can now, every argument won't end that way, but if you can somehow show that someone's position is what?
Contradicting.
Self-defeating, then it can't possibly be true, right? So let's say that someone did, say you're going around in circles and you are arguing that point, and someone said, you could say, so wait, let's just cut to the chase. They may not say this, they may not agree to this, but if they do, if they say, and you say, look, so what do you say right now? Are you saying that there are no such thing as moral truths? Is that what you're saying? And they said, yes, there are no moral truths. What's wrong?
How is that a moral truth?
That's a moral truth, right? That's self-defeating, right? So we don't know any of them. Well, do you know that one? Because if you know that one, then you do know one of them, which just opens the door that it's possible that we may know other moral truths, right? But then one of the things, Piper, you might want to do is you go through examples, right? So, for instance, the classic example everybody throws out is, you know, we have no business, right?
Stopping Germany.
Right, the Nazis,
Okay.
right? We had
I'll say that's been over for a while.
Right. We have no business stopping that, right? Because that's their cultural view, right? Well, they're affecting other cultures. It doesn't matter if that's their view, right? Now, okay, all right, I see where you're going. So it still doesn't mean it's wrong. We just don't like it. Okay, so you just don't like it then. Well, why don't you like it?
They killed 6 million Jews. I just don't like it.
Right. So, or you can take anyone's favorite cultural hot button topic and argue for the relativity of that in regards to morality. Say, all right, so whatever somebody's fill in the blank cultural hot button favorite topic is,
Stoning women.
if morals are relative and this culture does this to this fill in the blank cultural hot button topic, then it's okay. Right?
Really?
But then you try to reduce to the absurd. Like you say something like, all right, a country that enslaves blacks is no more what?
Immoral.
Immoral, or no more moral
That country that doesn't.
than a country that doesn't. There's no difference between the two.
Because it
Right?
was on the law books and therefore it was okay.
Right, or vice versa. Any of those sorts of things. You give counterexamples. You try to show that if you can, that the position is self-defeating. And I would say you ask more questions and you do more. Because again, this is what we didn't get to talk about the other day because you guys voted for the argument thing.
Was that for you say because we voted Trump? I was gonna say what?
The Socratic thing. You ask, the Socratic method is you ask more questions to try to bring to the surface a lot of the other, whoever your interlocutor is, their assumptions, their presuppositions of things they're taking for granted, right? Things like that. You ask those questions, right? All right, everybody give Piper a hand.
Boo.
All right, who's next?
No.
All right, what movie is this?
Matrix.
You next.
Princess Bride.
Somebody, come
Princess
on.
Bride?
Bloodsport. John Lee. You guys suck. Bloodsport. It's like his breakout movie. All right, who's next?
You mean the movie that set the tone for him pretty much doing the same movie
Basically.
times
All
in
right,
a row?
all right, just different outfit. All
You
right,
put them up side by side, it's the same choreography for every fight.
right, same dialogue, everything.
He always ends up with like a samurai sword. It's all the same movie.
And he's always beating up a whole bunch of people in a maximum security prison and everything.
All right, who's next?
A film conspiracy
Anybody next?
that
Boneheads.
Steven Seagal movie is literally the same.
Hey, Siskel and Ebert back here.
He's not gonna stop.
Robert and Ebert, whoever the movie critic guys are now.
He's dead now.
Yeah, I know. I don't know the new guy, the replacement player.
I laughed for like 5 minutes. Have you noticed something always?
I do want a radio station. So if any of you guys have any like pull, I want a radio station.
When you're not talking.
Hey, I was trying to help you with your argument.
She asked about 9/11.
Oh, I don't remember that.
You were gonna-
So is no one else going today? All right, so how many do we have left then? We have Joshua. We have Hannah. You didn't go.
Yeah, I did.
No, you didn't. We got you. You two are doing the test, right? We got Corinne back there, right? Yeah, those two are doing the test. They did it last time. They did the paper last time.
Did you do a paper last time?
She did it really. She did really good
Are
on
you
it.
gonna take a test then instead of doing it?
Yeah, this one, if you don't do the presentation instead of a paper, it's a exam, a cumulative exam.
We all were really bad at it.
When's the last time you gave the test, like 3 years?
I know, really.
No, I offered it last time.
Peanut butter sandwich.
Somebody actually take it?
One guy
I'm not sure.
took it.
But you didn't do it.